The growl of a Lamborghini Urus sliced through the damp, quiet streets of Chicago. Ethan Hayes, 35, gripped the fine Italian leather of the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as he watched headlights from oncoming traffic streak across the wet pavement, a hypnotic blur after another draining day of back-to-back meetings at Hayes Tech. The tech empire he was building demanded every ounce of his energy. Then, a piercing scream shattered the urban calm. Ethan slammed on the brakes, the tires hissing on the slick asphalt. His sharp green eyes scanned the desolate street, searching for the cry's origin. There, swallowed by the shadows of an alley near North Side, two small figures were pressed against a brick wall. "Get back here, you ungrateful little BR." A raw, drunken shout was cut short by the sound of shattering glass. A man, staggering and unstable, lurched out of the darkness, a broken bottle clutched in his hand. The sickly yellow glow of a streetlight illuminated his bloated red face, his eyes a toxic mix of alcohol and rage. Ethan didn't think twice. In a heartbeat, he was out of the SUV, the cold Chicago rain instantly soaking his $10,000 Tom Ford suit. Hey, his voice, a deep and commanding rumble, echoed off the wet brick. "Stay away from them." The man spun around clumsily. "Mind your own business. Playboy, they're my daughters. I do what I want with them." Ethan advanced, his nearly 2-meter frame casting an imposing shadow even in the gloom. Years of dedicated jiu-jitsu and boxing had honed his body into a weapon of solid muscle. "Last chance, back off, go to hell," the man charged, the jagged bottle held high. Ethan moved with the fluid precision of a seasoned fighter. He sidestepped the awkward attack, seized the man's wrist, and twisted sharply. The bottle crashed to the ground. Within moments, he had the man slammed against the wall, his arm bent painfully behind him. "Let me go! They're my daughters! I have the right, you have the right to a prison cell?" Ethan snarled, his voice low and dangerous. "What's your name?" "Robert Frank Davis," the man spat, his breath foul. "And those ungrateful brats are mine. Lily Sophia, get over here now." The two girls flinched, shrinking further into the wall. Under the streetlight, Ethan could now see they were identical twins, their soaked brown hair plastered to pale, terror-stricken faces. They couldn't be more than 12. Their worn dresses were drenched and filthy. "Call the police," Ethan ordered the closer girl, tossing her his phone. Now the girl trembled so violently she could barely grasp the device. Her sister clung to her, wide eyes locked on their struggling father. "You don't need to be afraid," Ethan said gently, his grip on Frank unwavering. "He won't hurt you anymore. You don't understand," one of them whispered, her voice barely audible. "He always finds us, always not this time," Ethan promised, a cold fury building in his chest. How could any man treat his own children this way? "What's your name, Lily?" she replied softly. "And this is my sister, Sophia. Nice to meet you. Lily and Sophia, I'm Ethan Hayes, and I promise I'll keep you safe." Frank let out a harsh, cruel laugh. "How you can't protect them forever. Playboy, they're mine. I'll find them wherever you hide them." Ethan applied more pressure to the twisted arm, forcing a pained groan from Frank. "Care to bet on that sirens began to wail in the distance?" Lily still clutched the phone like a lifeline. Sophia hadn't spoken, her eyes vacant, staring off into nothing. "The police are coming," Ethan said softly. "You're very brave now. I need you to trust me, okay? I'm taking you somewhere safe." Lily bit her lip, her hesitation palpable. "How can we trust you?" The question struck Ethan with the force of a physical blow. Of course they were wary of a stranger, especially after their ordeal. Because unlike him, Ethan nodded toward Frank. "I'm asking you to trust me, not demanding it. The choice is yours." The twins shared a look, a silent conversation that only siblings with their bond could have. Finally, Lily gave a small nod. "Okay," she whispered. "We trust you." The sirens grew louder, their red and blue lights painting the wet alley in frantic strokes. My daughter's Frank tried again, his voice cracking with a false plea. "Please, they're not your property," Ethan growled. "They're human beings, and you'll never lay a finger on them again." The first Chicago PD cruiser screeched around the corner. Within minutes, the alley was swarming with officers. Ethan handed Frank over, providing a quick, concise explanation. His name carried weight. The Hayes family was known for its generous contributions to the police force. Mr. Hayes, a detective, began. "Tomorrow," Jack said firmly, "they need medical attention and rest. First, I'm taking them to my apartment. You can meet me there in the morning." The detective paused, but then nodded. No one argued with Ethan Hayes for long. Frank was being loaded into a squad car, cuffed and still belligerent. "You can't do this. They're my daughters." Mine, Lily, and Sophia flinched at his shouts. Ethan moved between them and the police car, shielding their view. "Come on," he said softly. "My car's right over there. Let's get out of this cold." The twins followed him, their steps hesitant, to the waiting Lamborghini. Lily still held her sister's hand in a death grip, as if terrified they would be separated. Is that your car?" Sophia spoke for the first time, her voice a whisper, her eyes wide at the opulent SUV. Ethan managed a small smile, opening the rear door. "Yes, it is. Do you like it?" The girls glanced at each other once more before climbing inside, their wet dresses leaving dark stains on the pristine Italian leather. Ethan couldn't have cared less. It was just stuff. "Where are you taking us?" Lily asked as he settled into the driver's seat. "My apartment on the Gold Coast," Ethan answered, the engine purring to life. "It's the safest place I know. There's 24-hour security cameras everywhere. Frank will never get close to you." "There? Why are you doing this?" Sophia's voice was barely a sound. "Why are you helping us?" Ethan met her gaze in the rearview mirror. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because no one deserves to go through what you did." The rest of the drive was quiet. Ethan saw the twins whispering to each other, likely debating the reality of their situation. He didn't blame their distrust. Life had clearly been brutal to them. As they drove into the private underground parking of the luxury high-rise, Lily let out a small gasp. "Wow, you live here in the penthouse," Ethan confirmed, parking the car. "Come on, I'll show you." The private elevator whisked them directly to the top floor. When the doors slid open, the twins stood frozen in awe. The two-story penthouse was a masterpiece of glass, steel, and dark wood with a breathtaking panoramic view of a rain-swept Lake Michigan. "Welcome to your new home," Ethan said softly. For as long as you need, Lily and Sophia looked at one another, a storm of emotions crossing their identical faces. Fear, hope, suspicion, and gratitude all swirling in young eyes that had witnessed far too much. "Thank you," Lily whispered at last, squeezing her sister's hand. For everything a knot formed in Ethan's chest. Here were two children who had endured hell from the one person meant to protect them, yet they still had the capacity for gratitude. In that moment, Ethan Hayes, tech billionaire, one of Chicago's most powerful men, made a silent vow. No matter what it took, no matter the cost, he would ensure Lily and Sophia never felt fear again. The rescue was just the beginning. The true challenge, healing their broken spirits and rebuilding their shattered trust, had just started. But for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, there was hope shining in the eyes of the Davis twins. And for Ethan, that was a reward beyond any price. The penthouse was quiet save for the gentle drumming of rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ethan watched the twins, still damp and shivering, as they stared in wonder at their luxurious surroundings. "You must be cold," he said kindly. "I'll show you where you can take a hot shower." Lily nodded, her hand still locked with Sophia's. Ethan led them down a hallway to a spacious guest suite. "There are clean towels in the closet," he explained, opening drawers. And oh, wait a second. Ethan vanished for a moment, returning with two of his own oversized T-shirts. I know these will be huge on you, but it's better than those wet clothes tomorrow. We'll get you something that fits." "Thank you," Lily whispered. Sophia remained silent, her eyes darting around the opulent room. "I'll fix something for you to eat while you shower," Ethan said. "Take as long as you need." The moment he closed their door, Ethan was on his phone, making 3 rapid calls. To his private physician, to a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and to his personal assistant, Ashley, with a long list of urgent necessities. In the kitchen, as he prepared hot chocolate and grilled cheese sandwiches, his mind kept returning to the man in the alley. Frank Davis. How could any father inflict such pain? The sound of shuffling footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. The twins emerged, looking even smaller and more fragile in his T-shirts, which hung on them like dresses. Their wet hair was combed, and they looked swallowed by the fabric. "Better?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the tall stools at the kitchen island. Lily managed a tiny smile, the first one he'd seen, and climbed onto a stool. Sophia followed, her silent shadow. "Hot chocolate," he offered. "I made some sandwiches too." The girls looked at the food with a mixture of desperate hunger and apprehension. "Can we really?" Lily started. "Of course," Ethan replied gently. "It's all for you." They ate with a hesitant slowness at first, as if expecting the food to be ripped away. Gradually, their hunger took over. Ethan noticed Lily subtly pushing more of her sandwich toward her sister, ensuring Sophia ate her fill. The doorbell chimed, making both girls jump. "It's okay," Ethan reassured them. "It's just Dr. Emily Carter, my private doctor. We need to make sure you're okay." Dr. Carter was a petite, kind-faced woman with a gentle demeanor. "Hello, girls. May I take a look at you?" Lily glanced at Ethan, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Okay," she answered for both of them. The exam was conducted in the living room with the utmost care and sensitivity. Ethan watched as Lily answered the doctor's questions, while Sophia communicated only with nods and headshakes. Some bruises and minor scrapes Dr. Carter reported to him afterward. Nothing broken, thankfully, but they're malnourished and exhausted. They need rest and good nutrition. She left behind some prescriptions and detailed instructions. She had hardly left when the second visitor arrived, Dr. Jessica Ramirez, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. "We won't have a formal session today," she explained to the girls. "I just want to get to know you a little. Is that okay?" During that initial conversation, the twins' distinct personalities became clearer. Lily, though wary, answered questions and even offered a fleeting smile. Sophia remained completely silent, her eyes constantly scanning the room like a cornered animal. "That's normal," Dr. Ramirez explained to Ethan later. "Trauma affects different people in different ways. Lily takes on the protector role, speaking for both. Olivia has withdrawn as a defense mechanism. It will take time and gentle care to regain their trust." When the psychologist departed, Ethan found the twins asleep on the vast sofa, utterly exhausted. He gently covered them with a soft cashmere blanket and settled into a nearby armchair, resolving to keep watch. His phone buzzed. A message from Ashley confirmed that a host of morning deliveries were scheduled. Clothes, toiletries, school supplies, everything 2 12-year-old girls could possibly need. The next steps were already taking shape in his mind. Beef up the building security, handle the legal paperwork, find them a good school. But for now, he just watched them sleep, perhaps peacefully for the first time in a very long time. Lily shifted, her hand instinctively finding her sister's. Even in sleep, her protective instinct was on high alert. Sophia, meanwhile, had her face buried in her sister's shoulder, seeking refuge from the world. The rain continued its rhythm against the windows, but inside this sanctuary, they were safe. Ethan knew it would be a long road. Trust, once shattered, isn't easily repaired. But as he looked at these 2 courageous girls, he knew he would do whatever it took to shield them. Morning arrived with a flurry of deliveries from high-end department stores. Ethan watched the twins' eyes go wide at the mountain of shopping bags. "Are these for us?" Sophia asked, her voice a near inaudible whisper. "All for you," Ethan confirmed. "Clothes, shoes, school supplies, we need to make sure you have everything you need." Lily picked up a soft, delicate blouse, her fingers stroking the fabric as if it were a rare artifact. "We've never had new clothes before," she murmured. Ethan felt his heart ache. "Well, you do now, and this is just the beginning." While the girls timidly explored their new possessions, Ethan was orchestrating a security overhaul. Additional cameras were installed, the alarm system was upgraded, and the building's security team, led by a man named Chief Miller, was given photos of Frank Davis with strict orders. "No one enters without prior authorization," he instructed the chief of security. "And I want to be notified of any suspicious activity immediately." The following hours were dedicated to building a new routine. Dr. Ramirez returned for a more formal session, meeting with each twin individually. "Lily has strong coping mechanisms," she reported to Ethan afterward. "She channeled her fear into protecting her sister, but she's carrying a huge burden for someone so young. And Sophia, her selective mutism is a response to severe trauma. She only communicates with her sister. It will take a lot of time and patience for her to feel safe again." Jack nodded, watching the twins through the glass door to the balcony. They were sitting side by side on a lounge chair, Lily reading a new book aloud to Sophia. "What's the best way to help them? Consistency," the psychologist replied. "Establish routines, keep promises, even the small ones they need, to relearn that they can trust adults." That afternoon, a private tutor arrived to assess their educational level. As Ethan had suspected, there were significant gaps. School had clearly not been a priority in their former life. "Lily shows a natural ease with numbers," the tutor reported. "And Olivia, though she doesn't speak, demonstrated excellent reading comprehension with proper attention. They can catch up." Ethan celebrated every small victory. How Lily began to relax at mealtimes, no longer stashing food in her pockets. How Sophia, still silent, started to explore the vast apartment when she thought no one was looking. That night, he set up a bed for himself on the living room sofa, unwilling to leave them alone on their first full day. He found Lily standing in the hallway. "Mr. Morrison, you can call me Jack." She hesitated. "Jack, thank you for all this?" "No need to thank me, Lily. You both deserve all the care in the world." She bit her lip, clearly wanting to say more. "He, our Father, He always finds us, not this time," Ethan promised firmly. "You're safe here. You have my word." Lily gave a slight nod before retreating to the room where Sophia waited. Ethan kept his gaze on the closed door, his resolve hardening. Tomorrow he had to return to work, but a plan was already in place. Security feeds streamed directly to his phone, extra guards, a private driver to take the girls to their appointments. Frank Davis might be a menace, but Ethan Hayes had nearly limitless resources and a singular new mission: to protect these girls at all costs. Lying on the sofa, he could occasionally hear the soft murmur of whispers from the twins' room, their private language forged in years of survival. In just one day, they had profoundly changed his life. Ethan had always had everything money could buy, but for the first time he felt he was doing something with true meaning. Lily and Sophia had survived hell. Now it was time for them to learn how to truly live, not just exist. And he would be there to guide them every step of the way. The day had been a whirlwind of doctors, evaluations, and security arrangements, but looking at the closed door of the twins' room, Ethan knew this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. A journey of healing, trust, and, one day, perhaps, happiness. Morning came early in the penthouse. Ethan straightened his tie while watching the twins eat breakfast with the housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, a trusted woman who had worked for his family for decades. "Remember," he said for the third time, "you can call me anytime, my phone's always on." Lily nodded between spoonfuls of cereal. "Weck, be fine, Jack. Mrs. Martinez seems nice." Sophia just watched, her large eyes taking in every movement. "The guards are on alert. The cameras are working," Ethan continued. "And Dr. Santos is coming by this afternoon for a session," Sr. Morrison, Mrs. Rodriguez, interjected gently. "You'll be late for your meeting." With one last worried glance at the girls, Ethan stepped into the elevator. It was unsettling how, in just 2 days, these children had become the center of his universe. Hayes Tech occupied a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Chicago. Ethan had barely settled into his office when his assistant Ashley entered with the day's mail. "Your meetings start in 15 minutes, Mr. Morrison," and she hesitated. "There's this letter. It didn't go through the usual security scan." Ethan took the crumpled envelope. No return address. His name was scrawled in a shaky, aggressive hand. A cold dread settled in his stomach as he recognized the handwriting from Frank Davis's police file. He carefully sliced it open with a letter opener. A folded piece of paper fell out. "You're not going to separate me from my girls. They are my property. No matter where you hide them, I will find them." The writing was uneven, smudged as if by booze or tears, but the threat was unmistakable. Ashley Ethan called, his voice tightly controlled. "Cancel my morning meetings and get the head of security." Now within minutes, his office was a command center. The letter was carefully bagged for forensics. The head of security, a retired police chief named Miller, studied the building's security footage on his tablet. The envelope was left at reception during a shift change, Chief Miller reported. "We have footage of the delivery boy teenager, probably unrelated, but we're tracing him." "How did he get my business address so fast?" Ethan muttered, thinking aloud. "Internet," Ashley replied, typing on her laptop. "Morrison Enterprises is a public company. Anyone can find the headquarters." Ethan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Double security at the penthouse. I want more guards, more cameras, and run a full background check on anyone who comes near the building already happening." Chief Miller nodded. "But Mr. Morrison, this is personal. Miller is obsessed. Men like that are unpredictable." "Are you suggesting I give up the girls?" Ethan asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Of course not. Sir, I'm suggesting we think several steps ahead. Miller is a predator. He'll study plan." Wait for the right moment. Ethan grabbed his phone, checking the penthouse camera feeds for the 10th time that morning. Lily and Sophia were in the living room with Mrs. Rodriguez, seemingly doing schoolwork. "I want hourly updates," he ordered. "Any suspicious move, no matter how small, reported immediately." When his team had left, Ethan reread the letter. The threat was plain, but there was an undercurrent of desperation. Frank Davis was a man losing his grip, which only made him more dangerous. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Mrs. Rodriguez, a photo of the twins shyly smiling with new schoolbooks. Something tightened in Ethan's chest. In just 2 days, these girls had become his responsibility, his family. The morning became a blur of frantic calls and security briefings. Ethan barely touched the lunch Ashley brought in, his mind constantly on the penthouse. Mr. Morrison Ashley interrupted his thoughts. "The police are on the line. It seems Robert Miller posted bail." Ethan froze. "How apparently someone paid it for him. We haven't traced who yet, but he's free." Ethan cut her off, already grabbing his coat. "Yes, sir. About an hour ago, Ethan was in the elevator, dialing the penthouse." Mrs. Rodriguez answered immediately. "The girls, they are fine, senor, doing homework in the living room. Lock all the doors. Don't let anyone in until I get there." No one. The drive home through Chicago traffic had never felt so agonizingly long. Ethan switched between checking the live security feeds and making calls to his lawyer, the police, and contacts who could help track Davis. When he finally burst into the penthouse, he found Lily and Sophia curled on the sofa watching a movie, their faces illuminated by the screen. "You're home early," Lily smiled. Ethan forced a smile back, not wanting to scare them. "I missed my girls." Sophia studied him with her perceptive gaze. She always seemed to know when something was amiss. Mrs. Rodriguez followed him into the kitchen. "See, or did something happen? Frank Davis is out," Ethan said in a low voice, "and he left a threat at my office." The housekeeper crossed herself. Deus mu, what are we going to do? Protect them, Ethan replied simply. At any cost, he spent the rest of the afternoon feigning normalcy, but his eyes were constantly darting to the cameras, the windows, the doors. Every noise made him jump. That night, after the girls were in bed, Ethan held a video conference with his security team. "We need a contingency plan," Chief Miller argued. "Safe rooms, escape routes, alternative identities if needed." "Make it happen," Ethan ordered. "Cost is no issue." When he finally allowed himself to lie down, his mind was a storm of possibilities. Davis's words burned in his memory. "They are my property." No, they weren't. Lily and Sophia were bright, brave children who deserved a chance at a normal life, and Ethan was going to give it to them. Soft footsteps startled him. Lily stood in the doorway of his room, looking small and vulnerable in her new pajamas. "Jack, are you awake?" "Yes, sweetie, is something wrong?" She hesitated. "Olivia had a nightmare. She thinks she saw our father today through the window." Ethan sat up instantly. "Medwin this afternoon, but it was just her imagination, right? He can't find us here, can he?" Ethan opened his arms, and Lily ran to him, trembling. "Listen," he said gently. "I won't let anything happen to you. Ever. You have my word. Promise, I promise." Lily sniffled against his shoulder. Can we sleep here tonight with Olivia?" "Of course you can." Minutes later, the twins were curled up in his king-sized bed, finally drifting off to sleep. Ethan kept watch from a nearby armchair, his laptop open to the security feeds. Frank Davis's letter wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of war. But if Frank wanted a war, Ethan was more than prepared to give him one. Because now, it wasn't just about protecting two helpless children, it was about defending his family. And Ethan Hayes always protected what was his. The night wore on, the city lights of Chicago, a distant, silent witness. On the bed, Lily's hand found her sister's, their bond unbroken, even in sleep. They protected each other. Ethan watched the small, sleeping forms and felt his resolve harden into steel. Frank Davis may have thought he could intimidate him, but he had only succeeded in one thing: transforming Ethan Hayes from a reluctant guardian into a fiercely determined father. The war was just beginning, and Ethan had no intention of losing. Dr. Jessica Ramirez watched the twins settle on the sofa in her private office, a space temporarily set up in one of the penthouse's quiet rooms. Lily, as always, positioned herself slightly in front of her sister, a small, fierce guardian. Today the psychologist began softly. "I'd like you to tell me a bit about before only what you're comfortable sharing." Lily glanced at Sophia, who gave a nearly imperceptible nod. "It started when Mom left," Lily whispered. "Dad said she abandoned us, but she hesitated. But Dr. Ramirez encouraged. But I remember her crying, she had bruises on her face, and she hugged her so tight before she left." Sophia shrank back, burying her face in her sister's shoulder. "How old were you?" "We were 8, Lily answered. "That's when everything got worse. Dad started drinking more. He said we were just like her ungrateful traitors." Dr. Ramirez took a few notes. "And what was life at home like?" Lily took a deep breath. "We never knew what mood he'd be in sometimes, and with the first drinks, and he'd be cheerful. He'd tell stories, promise gifts." But then her hands began to tremble. Sophia held them firmly. "He got violent," Lily continued, her voice a thread. "He'd break things. He'd yell, said we were his property, that nobody else would love us. And what did you do? I learned to spot the signs when he started getting aggressive. I hid Olivia in the basement. There was a little nook there behind old boxes. I'd bring blankets, water." Dr. Ramirez saw how Sophia pressed herself closer to her sister at the mention of the basement. "You were protecting your sister." Lily nodded. She stopped talking after her voice broke. Sophia rolled up her sleeve, revealing a thin, pale scar on her forearm. Dr. Ramirez maintained her professional calm, but her heart ached. That was when he broke the bottle, Lily explained, tears now streaming down her face. Olivia had dropped a glass. I wasn't fast enough. You were just a child, Lily. You weren't expected to be fast, but I promised to protect her after Mom left. I promised nothing would ever hurt my sister. The psychologist watched as Sophia gently wiped away her sister's tears, a momentary reversal of their roles. How did you escape school sometimes when he let us go, or to Mrs. Peterson's house? Our neighbor, she noticed the bruises, tried to help, but Dad found out and banned us from talking to her and the police. Lily let out a bitter laugh. He was friends with the local cops. They always said it was just family issues. Dr. Ramirez wrote more notes. The pattern was textbook: systematic isolation, abuse of power, manipulation of authorities. That last night, Lily continued after a moment. He was worse than usual. He'd lost his job again, started smashing everything, saying he was going to teach us a final lesson. Sophia began to tremble violently. Lily held her close. We managed to escape through the back window. We ran with no direction. That's when we found Mr. Morrison. Dr. Ramirez noticed the slight relaxation in the twins' shoulders at the mention of Ethan's other name. How do you feel here with Jack? Safe. Lily answered without hesitation. He never yells, never demands anything, and she gave a faint smile. He lets us eat as much as we want. It was the first time the psychologist had seen a genuine smile from Lily. Olivia, Dr. Ramirez asked gently, "Would you like to tell me how you feel?" The girl hesitated, then picked up a paper pad and wrote in a shaky hand, "I'm scared it's a dream. Why do you think it's a dream?" More writing. Good things don't happen to people like us. What kind of people are you, broken? Lily answered for both of them. Dad always said we were defective goods. That's why Mom left. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of professional anger. The psychological damage was deep, but there was hope. The girls had each other, and now they had Ethan. You are survivors, she stated firmly. You went through things no child should ever face, but you survived. That's not being broken. That's being extraordinarily strong. Lily blinked, surprised. Sophia lifted her gaze for the first time in the session. And Jack, Lily searched for the right word. Different good, like we imagined Dad should be. Olivia wrote, he makes Lily smile. The session continued, revealing more layers of horror, nights without food, days locked in the house, constant threats. Yet it also revealed the incredible strength of the bond between the sisters. When Ethan returned from work that afternoon, he found the twins drained but somehow lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. It was hard, Dr. Ramirez told him privately. But necessary. They needed to start processing the trauma. And now we continue day by day. Their biggest fear is that this is temporary, that you'll get tired, that you'll send them back. Ethan felt his heart clench. Never then show them consistency, patience, unconditional love. That's what they need most now. That evening, Ethan found the twins dozing in the media room. He'd put on a kids' movie, but they had fallen asleep almost immediately, huddled together as always. Watching these two resilient girls, Ethan made another silent promise. They would never have to be strong on their own again. Now they had him. Forever. Ethan Hayes' office had been converted into a war room. Private investigators, forensic experts, and lawyers filled the conference space, analyzing every facet of Frank Davis's threat. The analysis of the letter revealed something interesting, said Dr. Chen, a forensic specialist. Traces of cheap alcohol, but also another chemical, probably prescription meds. Ethan frowned. What kind of meds? Antipsychotics, and by the concentration, he's not taking them regularly. Detective Johnson, a grizzled ex-cop with decades on the force, spread photographs across the table. Robert Miller follows a pattern: alcoholism, domestic violence, obsessive behavior. Did you get his record? 3 assault charges, 2 DUIs, but the worst is the archived complaints, all involving violence against women. Ethan studied the police reports, each page a testament to the monster who had terrorized Lily and Sophia. "How did he keep custody of the girls' connections?" Johnson replied bitterly. Miller worked his security in several bars frequented by cops. He built an informal network of protection attorneys. Sarah Lee jumped in. "We're filing for an emergency custody order with the abuse evidence and the threatening letter. We have a strong case. How long will it take for temporary custody? A few days permanent, might take months, but Miller won't have legal access to the girls during the process." Ethan nodded, checking the penthouse cameras on his phone yet again. The twins were safe, doing schoolwork with their private tutor. "And the letter?" he asked. "Were you able to trace the delivery boy?" Johnson projected security images onto a large screen. "Local teenager earning money on the side, making deliveries," he said. A man approached him in a bar, offered him $50 to drop off the envelope. Miller, no, the description doesn't match. Probably an intermediary. Ethan's unease grew. Davis was being more calculated than he'd anticipated. "We need more," he said. "I want to know everything: where he lives, where he drinks, who his contacts are, especially who paid his bail." "We're on it," Johnson assured him. "We've set up discreet surveillance of his known spots, but he's being careful, changing his routine." The meeting dragged on, each specialist adding their expertise. Psychological profiles were drafted, behavioral patterns analyzed, security protocols reinforced. Mr. Morrison, Chief Miller, the head of security, caught his attention. "We found something on the building's cameras." The footage showed a man watching the penthouse building from a coffee shop across the street. It wasn't Davis, but his posture screamed surveillance. "Scouting," Chief Miller explained. "He's studying our routines, looking for weaknesses. Have we identified him? Ex-military, works as a private security guard, has connections to Miller from when they served." Together, Ethan felt a chill. Davis wasn't just a lone wolf. He had a network of trained individuals. "Double security," he ordered. "I want teams on duty 24/7, constant monitoring," and he hesitated. "Prepare the safe house." Chief Miller nodded, understanding immediately. If Davis made a move, they needed an escape plan and a secure, secret location. Attorney Lee returned with more documents. "I managed to get a preliminary restraining order. Miller can't come within 500 m of the girls or you," as if a piece of paper would stop him. Ethan muttered, "No, but it gives us legal grounds for immediate action if he tries something." The morning passed in a whirlwind of information and strategic planning. Ethan absorbed it all, determined to leave no vulnerability in the girls' protection. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Dr. Ramirez. "Sophia had a panic attack today. She thought she saw her father through the window." Ethan immediately reviewed the camera footage from that time. Nothing, but the fear was real and justified. "Reva," he called the detective. "I want to know more about their mother, Sarah Miller. Born Thompson disappeared 4 years ago. No record since find her. She might be crucial for the custody process." Johnson took notes. "It'll be tough if she's hiding from Miller. She probably changed her identity. Use every resource necessary. Money is no object." That afternoon brought more unsettling news. The antipsychotics from the letter were from an old, lapsed prescription. Davis had a history of untreated mental illness. Personality disorder with obsessive traits, the freak psychiatrist explained. Combined with alcoholism and a history of violence, we have a ticking time bomb. Ethan stared out at the Chicago skyline, his thoughts on the 2 girls who now depended on him completely. Every new piece of information about Frank Davis only solidified the picture of a dangerous and unpredictable monster. Mr. Morrison Ashley interrupted his thoughts. "The girls are on the line," Ethan answered instantly. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," Lily sounded cheerful. "We just wanted to know if you'll take long. Olivia drew a picture for you." A warmth spread through Ethan's chest, a small island of light in the sea of chaos. "I'm leaving now," he promised. "Keep that drawing for me." He hung up, his determination renewed. Davis might have accomplices, connections, and a twisted resolve, but Ethan had something far more powerful. 2 little girls to protect, a family to defend. The investigation continued. every lead pursued, every threat assessed. In the meantime, he would make sure Lily and Sophia could simply be children, drawing, studying, and smiling. Because in the end, that was the entire point. To give them the childhood they deserved, the safety they needed, and the love they had been denied for so long. Ethan's investigative team had taken over an entire conference room, its walls a complex web of photos, documents, and red string. At the center was an old photo, Susan Davis, born Thompson, smiling with her 4-year-old twin daughters. Last official record, Johnson pointed. Bank account closed in 2019. After that, nothing is impossible these days, Ethan replied. Everyone leaves a digital trail. We've already checked employment records, rentals, credit cards. She was meticulous in disappearing. Ethan studied the photo. The smile didn't quite reach Susan's eyes. Fear was already present. Who helped her? Nobody vanishes completely alone. Johnson projected more images. Former neighbor Mrs. Peterson mentioned in the girl's testimony she died 2 years ago, but she withdrew a significant sum before passing and made several calls to Seattle. Ethan leaned in, his interest piqued. Washington State, big city, easy to get lost in, a perfect place for a new beginning. The investigation zeroed in on the Pacific Northwest. Records were scoured, contacts were discreetly approached. Susan Thompson had disappeared, but someone with her fingerprints had been hired at a municipal library 3 years prior. Janet White Johnson read the new name. Librarian lives alone, volunteers at a women's shelter on weekends. Surveillance photos showed a different woman. Short, graying hair, oversized glasses, nondescript clothing. But the eyes were the same eyes as the twins. It's her, Ethan confirmed. How do we reach out carefully? She ran for a reason. If we scare her? Ethan thought of the girls. I need to go in person. She needs to know her daughters are safe. The plan was executed with military precision. Ethan flew to Seattle on his private jet, checking into a discreet boutique hotel. The library was monitored, her routine observed. Susan, now Janet, lived a small, controlled, invisible life. Miss White. She froze at the sound of Ethan's voice, her eyes instantly darting toward the exits. The library was nearly empty on this rainy afternoon. Don't be afraid, Ethan said softly. I came because of Lily and Sophia. The color drained from her face. They're safe. They're with me now. Frank can't hurt them anymore? Susan staggered, leaning against a bookshelf for support, as tears began to stream down her face. They're alive, she whispered. Thank God they're alive. Ethan gently guided her to a private study room. Susan trembled as years of buried fear and guilt came pouring out. I didn't want to leave them, she began, the words tumbling out. But he said he'd kill them if I didn't vanish, showed me the gun, said he'd make it look like an accident. I know, Ethan replied softly. The girls told us about the abuse. Susan hid her face in her hands. I tried to take them 3 times. I tried to run away with them, but he always found us. He had friends in the police and the court, and now he has nothing. He's under investigation. The girls are under my legal protection. She studied him with Sophia's identical eyes. Who are you? Ethan explained everything, the rescue in the alley, the months of healing, the layers of protection he'd put in place. Susan listened, starved for any news of her daughters. Olivia, stop talking, she whispered at one point. My brave little girl, she's starting to open up now, and Lily, she's been protecting her sister this whole time. More tears fell. They were so little, they shouldn't have gone through this, they shouldn't, Ethan agreed. But now they have a chance to start over, and they need their mother. Susan stiffened. I can't. He won't do anything. I have resources. Susan, security lawyers, real police protection. You can go back to your daughters. They must hate me. They miss you. Lily still keeps that last photo of you 3 at the park. Susan sobbed, years of guilt, fear, and longing finally breaking free. Can I see them? That's why I'm here. But we need to do this right. Prepare the girls. Ensure your safety." The next few days were a blur of intense planning. Susan's identity was legally restored. A protection detail was arranged. Ethan gently broke the news to the twins. "Your mother didn't abandon you," he explained. "She ran away to protect you, and now she really wants to see you again," Lily cried. Sophia wrote pages of questions. They were caught between hope and fear. The reunion took place in the Chicago penthouse, with Dr. Ramirez present for support. Susan, her hair now back to its natural brown, was shaking as she stepped out of the elevator. Mom Lily's voice, small and uncertain, broke the tense silence. In a flash they were in each other's arms, Sophia joining the desperate, clinging embrace. "My babies," Susan sobbed. "My precious girls, forgive me, forgive me." Ethan and Dr. Ramirez slipped out, giving them their space. Through a security monitor, he watched the fractured family begin to piece itself back together. Susan told them everything, the constant terror, the failed escapes, the impossible choice she was forced to make. Lily and Sophia listened, cried, and asked questions. "I'll never leave you again," Susan promised. "We'll never be Art Ethan watching from a distance," felt a pang. In just a few months, these girls had become his family. Now that their mother was back, what was his role? But then Lily's voice called out, "Jack, come here." He entered the room, hesitant. Lily ran and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For bringing our mom back?" Sophia joined the hug. Susan watched, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you," she said simply. "For taking care of them when I couldn't," Ethan understood then. He wasn't losing his family, he was helping to build a bigger, stronger one. The war with Frank Davis was far from over, but now they had another soldier in their ranks, another heart to protect. And Ethan Hayes would protect them all. His girls, his family, his home. Detective Johnson laid a new set of surveillance photos on Ethan's desk. The images showed Frank Davis at various locations around Chicago, always lurking in the shadows, always watching. Getting bolder, Johnson pointed out. 3 sightings near Hayes Tech in the last week. Ethan studied the photos. Davis looked gaunt and more unstable, with hollow eyes and a scraggly beard. But there was a calculating glint in his gaze that was deeply unsettling. "The full criminal records have arrived," Chief Miller, the head of security, announced. "It's worse than we thought. The file was thick." Beyond the known assaults were archived complaints from 3 different states, all following the same pattern: domestic violence, stalking, threats. He always used his connections to evade consequences. "How did he hold on to custody?" Ethan muttered again. "He had a pattern," Chief Miller explained grimly. "First isolation, then total control. When he loses that control, he eliminates what he can't control." Ethan completed the thought. "The girls aren't just his daughters, they're his property. Now Susan is back exactly. We have to move fast." The investigation kicked into high gear. Surveillance teams tracked every suspicious movement. Informants in local bars reported Davis's conversations were growing more paranoid and violent. "We found one of his hideouts," Johnson reported. An apartment rented under a false name in the South Side. The photos of the hideout were chilling. The walls were covered with newspaper clippings about Hayes Tech and recent, long-lens photos of the twins, photos that were far too recent for Ethan's comfort. How did he get these images? He has help, Chief Miller confirmed. Professionals ex-military like him, mercenaries. A map of Chicago dominated one wall, with red circles marking the penthouse, Hayes Tech, and the school the girls were scheduled to attend. Davis was planning an operation. "We need more," Ethan insisted. "I want to know his every move, every contact, every breath." The investigation expanded. Phone records revealed calls to burner phones. Bank transactions showed payments to shell corporations. "He's assembling an operation," Chief Miller warned. "It's no longer just an obsessive father, it's an organized threat." Ethan escalated security yet again. More guards, more cameras, stricter access protocols. The twins and Susan were never left alone. "We found his arsenal," Johnson reported one afternoon. Guns, explosives, tactical gear, enough for a small war. And Davis gone. He cleared out the apartment, but he left this for you. Another letter. The handwriting was angrier, more frantic. You may have money. Morrison, you may have guards, cameras, your entire empire. But I have time, and when you let your guard down, when you think they're safe, I'll take back what's mine. Ethan crumpled the note in his fist. He wants to scare us, make us slip up. It's working, Chief Miller observed. Your team is on edge, the girls can sense it. Susan barely sleeps. It was true. A toxic fog of fear had settled over the penthouse. Lily was more protective than ever. Sophia was having nightmares again, and Susan jumped at every sound. We have to end this, Ethan decided. We can't keep waiting for him to strike. We have one chance, Johnson said. Davis follows a pattern. He always returns to the same places on significant dates, which dates his wedding anniversary. With Susan is coming up, he always drinks at the same bar every year. Ethan felt the immense weight of the decision. It was a huge risk, but it was their best shot. Set everything up, he ordered. I want a flawless operation, no chance of error. The preparations were meticulous. Tactical teams were briefed, escape routes mapped, every detail scrutinized. Susan provided crucial intelligence, places Davis frequented, contacts he trusted, habits she remembered. Every piece helped complete the puzzle. He won't make it easy, she warned. Frank was always meticulous in his obsessions. That's why we have to be even more meticulous, Ethan replied. The tension mounted with each passing day. Davis remained a ghost, but his presence was a palpable threat, felt in every shadow and every unexplained noise. The twins sensed the shift in the atmosphere. Who's going to try to take us right? Lily asked one night. I won't let him. Ethan promised. H.E.K. never hurt you again, Sophia wrote on her notepad. But what if he hurts you? The raw concern in their eyes was a knife in his heart. They had already suffered so much. Nothing will happen to me, Ethan assured them. And soon this threat will be over. Trust me. The operation was set. Every agent was in position, every camera feed monitored, every exit covered. The trap was laid. All they had to do was wait for the predator to walk into it. He will come, Susan stated with grim certainty. His pride won't allow him to lose. Ethan watched his makeshift family, Susan reading to the twins, trying to maintain a sliver of normalcy amidst the chaos. He had so much to protect, so much to lose. But that was precisely why this had to end. So Lily could smile without looking over her shoulder. So Sophia could find her voice without fear. So Susan could finally sleep through the night. The hunt was about to reach its climax, and this time Frank Davis would not escape. Because he was no longer facing a terrified woman and two defenseless children. He was facing Ethan Hayes. And Ethan protected his family, no matter the cost. The interrogation room was quiet except for the soft whir of a video camera. Susan Davis sat straight, her hands clasped on the table as attorney Sarah Lee arranged the documents. But we can start whenever you're ready, Mrs. Davis, Sarah said kindly. Remember, this testimony is crucial for the custody case. Susan took a deep breath, drawing strength from Ethan's encouraging look from the corner of the room. I met Frank in 2008, she began. I was a newly graduated nurse. He had just left the Army. At first, he was charming, protective. He said he'd found his purpose in me. Her voice trembled slightly. The first sign was during our engagement. He had a violent outburst when a friend hugged me. He broke the man's nose, said he was protecting me from other men. Sarah Lee took careful notes as the camera recorded every word. I should have seen it then, but he cried, begged for forgiveness, swore it was just post-traumatic stress. I believed him. I wanted to believe. Susan paused, taking a sip of water. The wedding was quick, isolated. He had already started cutting me off from friends and family, said it was just us against the world. When did the violence begin? 3 months later, small things. At first shoves, tight grips on my arm, yelling over any little thing, always followed by remorse, gifts, promises. Tears began to fall. When I got pregnant with the twins, I thought it would get better for a while. It did. Frank was ecstatic, already planning the future for his girls. Susan shuddered at the memory. The delivery was difficult. I was hospitalized for a week when I returned. He'd been drinking every night. Furious, he had to care for the babies alone. That was the first time he actually beat me. Closed fists, kicks, he said I preferred staying at the hospital than taking care of the family. Sarah Lee gently offered her a tissue. Ethan stood with his fists clenched, reining in his fury. The twins were 3 months old when I tried to run. For the first time I packed a bag while he was at work, took some hidden money, but he had friends everywhere. A cop alerted him. He caught me at the bus station. Susan touched a faint scar on her neck, an unconscious gesture. That night I thought I'd die. He swung between rage and begging, choking me, then kissing the bruises, swearing it was all my fault for trying to destroy our family. How did you survive all those years? I learned to be invisible, to predict his moods, anticipate his needs. The twins learned too, Lily especially so young, yet she knew when he was dangerous. Tears flowed freely now. I should have protected them better, but every attempt to escape failed. Every plea for help was ignored. Frank had connections everywhere, so why did you leave alone? Susan closed her eyes, reliving the horror of that night. Lily was 6. Frank was furious because she spilled juice on the carpet. He started hitting her. Sophia tried to protect her sister, and her voice faltered. Ethan moved a step closer, a silent pillar of support. He threw Sophia against the wall. She passed out. While I was tending to her, he went to get his gun. He said, since I couldn't teach them properly, he'd show them how it's done. Susan was trembling violently. I begged, offered anything. He said, I had a choice, disappear forever, or watch the girls have an accident, showed me news articles about other families, other women who defied him, and you believed his threat. Jennifer Thompson, Susan whispered. His ex-fiancé Frank told me about her accident, and as a warning later, I found out she wasn't the only one. Sarah Lee presented photos of other victims. Susan recognized the patterns, the connections, the similar threats. How did you vanish Mrs. Peterson, our neighbor? She was part of a support network for battered women. She helped me with fake documents, connections in other cities. But the price, Susan sobbed. The price was leaving my girls. Did you stay in touch with Mrs. Peterson? Coded calls once a month? She'd give me basic news that the girls were alive going to school when she died. I lost my only link to them. Susan looked directly into the camera lens. Every day away from them was torture. Every missed birthday, every Christmas alone. But the alternative was watching them die. Frank never joked about his threats, and now, why come back? Because for the first time, there's real hope. Susan glanced at Ethan. Someone with the resources to fight Frank, the power to protect them for real. I couldn't stay hidden, knowing my daughters finally have a chance at a normal life. The testimony went on for hours. Susan detailed every incident of violence, every threat, every failed escape. A clear, damning pattern of systematic abuse and psychological terrorism emerged. One last question, Sarah Lee said softly. What do you want for your daughters now? Susan straightened her shoulders. I want them to be free, never again to feel afraid of their own father, to live like normal kids with a family that loves them and never hurts them. When the camera was finally turned off, Susan collapsed into sobs. Ethan was there to support her as she cried out years of pent-up guilt and pain. Did I do the right thing? She asked between sobs. Leaving them to protect them, you did what you had to with the options you had. Ethan answered gently. You're here now. That's what matters. Sarah Lee gathered the documents. This testimony is crucial. Susan, along with the physical evidence and prior statements, we have a solid case. What about Frank? He won't hurt anyone anymore? Ethan promised. You survived, protected your girls the best you could now. It's our turn to protect you. Susan nodded, exhausted but resolute. Years of secrets and fear had been dragged into the light. The next step was justice, for her, for the twins, and for all of Frank Davis's other victims. The morning dawned gray over Chicago, the heavy sky mirroring the tension of the day ahead. In Ethan's apartment, Susan nervously adjusted the ribbon in Lily's hair, her hands trembling slightly. The twins had slept poorly, haunted by nightmares of what they would face today. "Remember," Susan whispered as she helped the girls get ready. "You're stronger than he is. His words can't hurt you anymore." In the penthouse's spacious living room, Ethan went over security details with Chief Miller for the 10th time. Every entrance to the courthouse was mapped, every guard placed strategically, nothing left to chance. "Security will be tight," Chief Miller assured. "Davis won't stand a chance of getting close." The federal courthouse in Chicago was imposing, with its marble columns and tinted glass. Police cars surrounded the perimeter, extra precautions after Frank's threats. Ethan watched his family as they climbed the steps. Susan trying to appear strong, Lily protective as always, Sophia almost hiding behind them. In the conference room, Sarah Lee led her team with military precision. Carefully organized documents covered the mahogany table. Every piece of evidence, every record, every proof of the psychological terror Frank Davis had unleashed on his family. "The case is solid," Sarah explained, adjusting her thin-framed glasses. "We have documented evidence, credible witnesses, and now his diary. Judge Thompson is known for her firm stance on psychological abuse cases." In one corner of the room, Dr. Ramirez sat quietly, working with the twins, guiding them through breathing and grounding techniques. "Remember," she said kindly, "you have control now. If you feel uncomfortable, use our signal." Lily practiced her breathing calmly while Sophia clutched a small crystal in her hand, her safety anchor. The psychologist watched with pride how far they had come, though the trauma was still evident. Chief Miller's radio crackled, breaking everyone's concentration. "Miller's here, he's with the defense lawyer, and there's a group of supporters with him." Susan visibly paled. Ethan instinctively moved to block her view of the windows. Through the glass they could see a small group holding signs about father's rights and traditional family. "Ignore them," Sarah instructed firmly. "They're just here to provoke a reaction. Stay focused." The courtroom was packed when they entered. Journalists, law enforcement, curious onlookers. A murmur swept through the crowd as the family walked by. Frank Davis was already seated on the defense side, seemingly calm in his cheap suit, but his eyes held a predatory gleam that made Ethan position himself protectively. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "This court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Thompson presiding." The judge was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see through any pretense. She surveyed the room for a long moment before speaking. "Case number 2347. B. Custody of minors, Lily and Sophia Davis, with associated criminal charges. Given the sensitive nature of this case and the presence of minors, any disruption will result in immediate removal. Mrs. Lee, you may begin." Sarah rose gracefully. "Your Honor, we present a case of systematic psychological abuse and emotional terrorism spanning over a decade. Frank Davis not only terrorized his wife and daughters, but cultivated an environment of constant fear and total control." The following hours were a methodical exposition of the nightmare that had been life under Frank Davis's rule. Recordings of his rage outbursts were played, his thunderous voice ranting about disappointments and property, making the twins shrink in their seats. Detailed diaries documented his obsessive rules, specific schedules for every activity, elaborate punishments for minor infractions, endless lists of the girls' failures. The children lived in constant terror, testified Gloria Martinez, a former teacher of the twins. Any grade below an A meant severe psychological punishments, isolation, public humiliation, endless lectures on how they were disappointments. Defense attorney Michael Smith attempted to minimize during cross-examination. "Isn't it normal for parents to demand academic excellence, establish rules and consequences?" "Normal is encouraging," the teacher responded firmly. "Not threatening 7-year-olds with abandonment if they get a B in math, not forcing them to write essays about their own worthlessness when they fail to meet impossible expectations," Susan was the next witness. Ethan could see her fear as she approached the stand, but there was also new strength in her bearing, the strength of someone who could finally tell her truth. "Mrs. Davis," Sarah began gently, "could you describe the routine in your home?" Susan drew a shaky breath, her hands twisting the fabric of her skirt. "Frank had rules for everything. What time we woke up, how we made the beds, even which words we could use. The girls had scripted lines for when he came home, how to smile, what to say, even how to stand. And if these rules were broken, he exploded, could spend hours yelling, listing every flaw, every disappointment he made. The girls stand at attention while he described in DET detail how worthless they were, how no one else would ever love them." Michael Smith went on the attack during Cross. "And why didn't you seek help? Why leave your daughters with someone you claim is so terrible objection?" Sarah interjected. "Argumentative." "I'll rephrase," Michael Smith said with a cold smile. "What were your reasons for leaving 2 children with a man you describe as abusive?" Susan looked directly at Frank for the first time. "Because he promised to destroy them if I didn't leave, showed me what he did to Jennifer Thompson, how he broke her psychologically. Before the accident said he'd do the same to my girls slowly, so I'd know it was my fault." The tension in the room was palpable. Frank maintained a slight smile, almost amused, as if the whole thing was a big joke. Lily testified next. She looked small in the imposing chair, but there was a surprising dignity for someone so young. "What was life like with your father?" Sarah asked gently. "It was like walking through a minefield." Lily replied, her voice trembling. "We never knew what would trigger an explosion, a glass out of place, a laugh too loud, homework less than perfect. And what happened during those explosions? He yelled for hours, called us useless, stupid, said we were just like our mother failures who only knew how to disappoint. He made us repeat that we were his property, that we'd never be anything without him." Sophia's drawings were then presented, disturbing images of small figures surrounded by threatening shadows, cruel words and dark clouds that seemed to suffocate them. Sophia's selective mutism, Dr. Ramirez explained to the court, is a response to severe psychological trauma. When words have been used as weapons for so long, silence becomes a necessary defense. The most impactful piece of evidence came next. Frank's secret diary, found in his hideout. Pages and pages of obsessive control plans, lists of psychological punishments, detailed strategies to break the girls' resistance. He meticulously planned every aspect of the psychological terror Sarah explained, projecting images of the diary. Every cruel word, every manipulation, every technique to keep his victims in total submission. That's when something in Frank's expression changed. The light smile disappeared, replaced by something darker. "Lies!" he suddenly roared, standing up. "They're all lies. They are mine." The guards moved instantly, but Davis was out of control. "Look at me!" he shouted at the twins. "Look at your father. You are nothing without me. Nothing." That was when something extraordinary happened. In the midst of the chaos, a small but clear voice cut through the commotion. "We're not yours," Sophia said, speaking in public for the first time in years. "Never again." The silence that followed was deafening. Frank froze, his eyes fixed on the daughter who had remained silent for so long. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Shock, anger, and then fear. "You?" he began, his voice strangely altered. "I sound exactly like No-No? That can't be." The guards finally reached him, but Davis seemed to be somewhere else, muttering something about his own childhood, about voices from the past. "Court is adjourned," the judge declared. "We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. Take the defendant for immediate psychological evaluation." While Frank was led away, still murmuring incoherently, Ethan sensed there was something deeper emerging. This was no longer just about control and abuse. There were older wounds, deeper traumas at play. The family was escorted to a secure room where Lily clung to Sophia with all her might. "You spoke," she whispered to her sister. "You really spoke." Sophia trembled, but there was a new light in her eyes, the light of someone who had reclaimed her voice, literally and metaphorically. "What happened to him?" Susan asked Sarah quietly. That reaction when Sophia spoke, I'm not sure the attorney replied, thoughtful. But something about her voice triggered something in him. The psychological evaluation might reveal more. Ethan observed his family, feeling that they were on the verge of important discoveries. The trial was no longer just about custody and justice. It was unearthing truths buried long ago. While they waited to be escorted home, the tension in the air was palpable. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more confrontations, maybe even some answers. But for today, a small victory had been won. Sophia had found her voice, and in some way, her simple words had cracked Frank Davis's facade, offering a glimpse of the broken man behind the monster. The real showdown, Ethan now realized, was only beginning. The psychiatric ward of the state hospital was unlike the rest of the facility. Walls in softer tones replaced institutional gray, and while the windows were still barred, they let in more natural light. This was where Frank Davis had begun his hardest journey, confronting the man he had become. Dr. Anderson, a specialist in generational trauma, watched Frank from across the table during their daily session. 3 months of intensive treatment had visibly changed Frank. The man who once intimidated others now seemed smaller, more vulnerable, layers of aggression peeling away to reveal decades of pain. "How are you feeling today?" Dr. Anderson asked, noticing the deep circles under Frank's eyes. "The nightmares, they're worse," Frank admitted in a hoarse voice. "Now it's not just my father's memories. I see my daughters, the terror in their eyes, exactly how I looked at him." The psychiatrist made some notes. Frank's ability to make these connections was a significant breakthrough. In the first weeks, he'd still tried to justify his actions, hiding behind excuses of discipline and fatherly love. "Do you want to talk about the specific nightmare that upset you?" Frank took a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly. "It was Olivia in the courtroom, but in the dream, it was also my mother, somehow their voices overlapping. 'We're not yours.' That's what my mother should have told him, what I should have told him. The treatment combined intensive therapy with appropriate medication, antidepressants and mood stabilizers that helped Frank maintain enough mental clarity to do the emotional work. "I've started writing letters," Frank said after a moment of silence. "Like you suggested for them, for my mother, even for him." Dr. Anderson nodded encouragingly. The letters were an important therapeutic tool. Even if they were never sent, they allowed Frank to process his feelings constructively. "Dear Olivia," Frank read from a crumpled sheet, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry for stealing your voice, for turning words into weapons. Like he did to me, you were braver than I was. You found the courage to say no, something I never managed to do." Tears started falling, smudging the ink. "Emily, my little protector, I'm sorry for forcing that role on you, for making you carry a burden that even I, an adult, couldn't bear. You deserve to be just a kid." Frank's journey was complex. Decades of trauma wouldn't vanish easily, and deeply ingrained behavior patterns required constant vigilance to change. "How do you feel about Sarah?" Dr. Anderson asked gently. Ashamed, Frank answered after a long pause. "I did exactly what my father did, controlled every aspect of her life, punished any sign of independence. And when she tried to protect our daughters, you forced her to leave, as your father forced your mother." Yes, the word came out as a sob. "I became him all those years, swearing I'd be different. I'd never be like William Miller. But I turned into his exact copy group sessions were also part of the treatment." Frank began attending meetings with other men, confronting their own demons of violence and control. "My father said it was love he shared in one session. That he controlled us because he loved us, because the world was dangerous. I told my daughters the same lies." The group offered something crucial, the chance to see one's own behavior reflected in others, to recognize patterns, and most importantly, to witness that real change was possible. A particularly meaningful day came when Frank found an old photo, him at age 12, with his younger sisters. I protected them from him, he told Dr. Anderson. I'd stand in front of them when he was furious, distract him exactly like Emily did for Olivia. What does that make you realize that at some point I forgot who I was? That boy who protected his sisters turned into the monster he feared. The therapy wasn't just about confronting the past, it was about developing new tools for the future. Frank learned anger management techniques, practiced nonviolent communication, and worked on recognizing and interrupting toxic thought patterns. "Can I ask to see them?" he asked one day, his voice small. "Not now, I know it's too soon, but maybe someday. That would depend on many factors," Dr. Anderson replied honestly. "Mainly their willingness, and you'd have to prove through consistent actions that you're safe." Frank nodded, accepting the uncertainty in a way that would have been impossible months ago. Fair, they deserved the choice, deserved to have the control I took from them. The letters kept accumulating, exercises in brutal honesty with himself and those he hurt. In one of them, he finally managed to write to his deceased father, "You taught me that love was control, that respect came from fear, that family was property. It took me decades to realize those were all lies. Real love sets people free. Respect comes from kindness, and family is a daily choice to do better, be better." 6 months after starting treatment, Frank made a request to Dr. Anderson. "I want to record a video for them, not to ask forgiveness. I know I don't have that right yet, but so they know, I understand now, that I'm trying to change." The video was recorded under careful supervision. Frank, thinner and grayer, but with clearer eyes, spoke directly to the camera. "Emily, Olivia, I don't expect you to watch this now or ever. I just want there to be a record that I finally understand the harm I caused Ed, that I acknowledge every moment of terror, every cruel word, every freedom I stole from you." He paused, taking a shaky breath. "You are not mine. You never were. You are amazing, brave people who survived the same terror. I couldn't overcome as a child. You broke the cycle I perpetuated, and I'm deeply grateful for that." The video was archived, available whenever and if the girls chose to see it. Another step in Frank Davis's long journey toward redemption. Real change, Dr. Anderson explained in one of their final sessions that year, isn't just acknowledging mistakes or feeling remorse. It's doing the ongoing daily work of unlearning toxic patterns and building new ones. Frank nodded, clutching the last letter he'd written, this one to himself. "Dear Robert, you're not William Miller, but you're no longer that scared boy who became his own monster. You're learning, growing, changing, and even if you're never forgiven, even if you never see your daughters again, you have the responsibility to continue this work, because breaking the trauma cycle, even late to see, is still better than perpetuating it." Redemption wasn't a destination, but a journey, and Frank Davis, finally free of the chains of denial and rage, was taking his first real steps along that path. The change came on a spring morning. Susan watched the twins exploring the garden of their new home, a welcoming property in the wealthy Chicago suburb of Winnetka, chosen specifically for its family-friendly setting and discreet yet efficient security system. "It's different from the penthouse," Ethan remarked, joining her on the porch. "But I think it's exactly what we need right now." Susan smiled, watching Lily and Sophia discover a swing hanging from an old oak tree. The sound of their laughter, more frequent these last few months, filled the morning air. "It's perfect," she replied. "There's space to grow, to create new memories." The house had been chosen and renovated with care. Every detail was planned to create a warm, safe environment, from the soft colors on the walls to the open spaces that eliminated dark corners where fears could hide. Ethan had ensured a smooth transition. Security was still present, but more discreet. Modern cameras blended into the architecture, and the guards were trained to be practically invisible while maintaining constant vigilance. "Look," Mom Lily called from the yard. "There's a perfect planter here for flowers." The idea of nurturing new life, watching something grow under their care, became therapeutic for the family. Soon the garden was filled with colorful blooms, each flower personally chosen by the girls. The school routine also found its rhythm. After months of private tutoring to catch up, the twins were finally ready to attend a local school, a small, welcoming institution with staff trained to handle children who've been through trauma. "How was your first day?" Ethan asked when he picked them up. "Different," Sophia answered, her voice growing stronger every day. "But a good different. The teacher said she liked my drawing," Lily added excitedly. "They have a science club. Can I join, of course, sweetheart?" Susan smiled, recalling how before, every extracurricular was a matter of fear and tense negotiations. Weekends became special family times, picnics in the yard, movie nights with plenty of laughter, board games often ending in giggles. They were all learning to simply exist together without fear or pretense. Therapy continued, now in a gentler rhythm. Dr. Ramirez visited twice a week, guiding everyone as they processed the transition and solidified progress. "You've built something remarkable here," she observed during a family session. "A family built on choice, respect, and genuine love." The twins blossomed visibly. Lily took an interest in photography, documenting happy moments instead of constantly worrying about lurking dangers. Sophia discovered a talent for music, her voice finding strength through singing. Ethan, always present but never overbearing, became a natural father figure. He helped with homework, attended school events, and was there for nightmares and small celebrations alike. "You changed our lives," Susan told him one night after the girls had gone to bed. "Not just with resources or protection, but by showing us there's a different way to be a family." His response was heartfelt. "You changed mine too, showed me what really matters." Frank's video arrived through Dr. Anderson a few months after they moved in. Susan and Ethan decided to store it away until and if the girls wanted to watch it. "They have the right to choose," Susan explained, "to process it in their own time." The seasons changed, and so did the family. Autumn brought excellent report cards, earned through a desire to learn, not fear. Winter saw the twins' first real birthday party, with friends from school and decorations they chose themselves. "They seem like normal kids now," one teacher commented at a conference. "They are normal kids," Ethan gently corrected. "They just needed a chance to show it." Spring brought more positive changes. Susan started a nursing course, picking up the dream interrupted years ago. The twins performed in a school play, their voices strong and clear on stage. "I'm proud of you," Susan told them after the performance. "So proud we're proud of you too," Mom Lily replied, hugging her. "For going back to college, man, for being brave," Olivia added softly. "For showing us we can always start over." Summer arrived with promises of new adventures. They planned their first family trip, a month exploring Europe, discovering places where none of them had bad memories. "Are we ready?" Susan asked, a hint of old anxiety flaring. "More than ready," Ethan assured her. "And if at any point it feels off, we'll be together to handle it." Life wasn't perfect. There were still tough days, moments of sudden fear, memories that surfaced without warning. But now they had tools to cope, and most importantly, they had each other. One particularly meaningful afternoon, Lily found an old photo album while organizing her room. Instead of hiding it, as she would have done before, she brought it for the family to view together. "Look how small we were," she commented, seeing a photo of them at 5. "So scared, and look at you now," Ethan said gently, showing a recent photo of the twins smiling on the garden swing. "The difference is love," Sophia declared, sometimes surprisingly wise. Before it was all fear, now it's love. Susan pulled her daughters into a hug, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. Ethan joined them, his heart overflowing with affection for this family he had chosen, and that had chosen him back. The house was now full of life. Laughter echoed down the halls, music flowed from the piano where Sophia practiced, and the scent of homemade cookies, a new Saturday tradition, filled the kitchen. Outside, the flowers the girls had planted were starting to bloom, each one unique, each one strong, each one finding its own way to the light, just like their family. The future stretched before them, no longer a threat, but a promise of more sunny days than rainy ones, more laughter than tears, more love than fear. Because in the end, that's what they had built together. Not just a safe house or a reconstituted family, but a true home. A place where love needed no proof or permission, but simply existed, freely given, gratefully received. A new horizon, full of possibility, and they would face it as they did everything now. Together, strong, and free. On the porch, watching the sun set over their blossoming garden, Susan sighed contentedly. "We made it. Didn't we? We did," Ethan confirmed, as the girls' laughter echoed in the background. And this is only the beginning. The sound of Lily and Sophia's voices filled the air, carrying hope, carrying the promise of a future where they could finally be just that. Two sisters with a loving family, free from fear. The state hospital's psychiatric wing still held Frank Davis, but his therapy sessions had shifted their tone. He was no longer just confronting the past. He was looking toward a future, even if it was a future he might never fully have with his family. Yet the knowledge that Lily, Sophia, and Susan were safe, living their lives free from his grip, gave him a sense of twisted relief. He wasn't responsible for them anymore. No, that was wrong. He had never truly been responsible, only controlling, and now he was learning the difference. Dr. Anderson told him one afternoon, redemption doesn't mean avoiding consequences. It means accepting them and still choosing to do better every day. Frank had come to understand that. He would serve his time, continue his treatment, and keep working on himself. If, in the distant future, his daughters ever chose to see him, he prayed he'd be a man capable of deserving that meeting. For now, the letters he wrote were enough. He didn't expect replies. It was enough to know he had finally broken the cycle, at least within himself. Miles away in the cozy suburban home, life went on. The twins were busy with school, sports, music lessons, and the laughter of a life that no longer revolved around fear. Lily was flourishing academically, her natural aptitude for science shining through. She dreamed of attending a prestigious university, one of those top schools Ethan had read about. Sophia's artistic side blossomed through singing and painting. She expressed emotions that words sometimes failed to convey. She wrote a short poem for a school assignment about finding her voice in the darkest silence and won first place. Susan, meanwhile, excelled in her nursing courses. She was reminded every day of the reason she chose that path in the first place: to heal, to save, to protect. Ethan continued running Hayes Tech, but with a new perspective. He delegated more, freeing time to be with the family. Board meetings were no longer the center of his life. Lily and Sophia's soccer games or recitals were. Sometimes, in the quiet moments after the girls went to bed, Susan and Ethan talked about the past, about the grimy alleyway where he'd first found them, about the fear that had once consumed their lives. "It feels like a different world," Susan confessed, sipping tea on the porch. "But sometimes I still have nightmares." "I see Frank's shadow lurking." Ethan took her hand gently. "Nightmares fade, and if they don't, we face them together." Susan smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, so different from the forced smiles of the past. "Thank you," she whispered. "For showing me that not all men are monsters." Ethan's chest tightened with emotion. "Thank you for letting me be part of your family." The therapist, Dr. Ramirez, noticed the changes too. She scheduled fewer sessions because the family was healing, learning to handle triggers on their own. Yet she remained on call whenever they needed her. One afternoon, Lily approached Dr. Ramirez with a question, her expression serious. "Do you think it's possible to forgive him one day? Our Father?" Dr. Ramirez chose her words carefully. "Forgiveness is a personal process, Lily. It doesn't mean forgetting or minimizing what happened. It means deciding how much power those memories have over you." Lily nodded. I don't know if I can, not yet. But maybe someday. I just don't want to carry this anger forever. Sophia, who still preferred writing for deeper conversations, scribbled on her notepad. I'm not sure I want to forgive, but I don't want him invading my thoughts every day either. The psychologist praised them for their insight. You're allowed to choose your own path to healing, whether it includes forgiveness or not. The important thing is that you're free to decide. Over time, small reminders of Frank appeared less and less. The protective routines, checking windows, triple-locking doors, gradually relaxed as the family felt safer in their new environment. However, of course, the security measures never entirely went away. Ethan had the resources to ensure the highest level of protection, and he saw no reason to remove them completely. But they were in the background now, not dominating their daily life. Lily and Sophia made new friends, had sleepovers and movie nights, normal things that once seemed impossible. Parents were carefully vetted by Ethan's security team, but quietly, so the twins could enjoy teenage life without constant reminders of the past. Susan advanced in her nursing career, soon to be a licensed practical nurse. She considered specializing in trauma care, her own experiences giving her a unique perspective on patient suffering. Ethan continued balancing business with fatherhood. Some nights he worked late to close major deals, but he always made sure to be there for big moments. Lily's science fair, Sophia's art exhibition. The girls teased him gently, calling him a cool dad. Watching them banter around the dinner table, Susan felt her heart surge with gratitude. This was what she had always wanted for her daughters, a normal life free from constant fear. On the first anniversary of their new home, they threw a small party, just close friends and family. The twins decorated the house with bright balloons and made a banner that read, "1 year of freedom." Susan found herself tearing up at the sight of it. 1 year ago, they were still in hiding, haunted by nightmares, and now here they were, celebrating. Ethan proposed a toast, his voice thick with emotion. To Lily and Sophia, the bravest people I know. And to Susan, who never gave up hope. Thank you for teaching me what love and family really mean. Glasses clinked softly, and for a moment, Susan and Ethan locked eyes, a silent acknowledgement of how far they'd come. The night was filled with laughter and music. Sophia sang a song she composed, and Lily showed off a short video she made, compiling their family's happiest moments. I never want to forget how we got here, Lily explained, because it reminds me that even when things are horrible, they can get better. Susan hugged her daughters tight, overwhelmed by pride and love. Ethan joined them, wrapping his arms around all three, forming a small circle of warmth. That circle, that sense of safety and unity, was what they had fought so hard for, and now it was theirs, unbreakable. As the months passed, the girls continued growing, physically, emotionally, academically. Lily, once anxious and hypervigilant, now discussed big dreams, a scholarship to MIT or Stanford. Sophia, once silent, considered attending an arts academy. Susan supported them unconditionally, as did Ethan, who promised to support any path they chose, financially, but more importantly, emotionally. Wherever you go, whatever you do, he reminded them, I'm here. Frank Davis's name came up less and less, though occasionally a question arose. Will he get out someday? Or could he still find us? The answer was always honest. Someday he might be released, but the protection doesn't end, and your safety is our top priority. You don't need to worry. The girls accepted that, trusting Ethan's promises in a way they once couldn't trust any adult. Trust had become the foundation of their new life. One day, a letter arrived from Dr. Anderson, addressed to Susan but with Lily, and Sophia's names on the envelope too. Inside was an update on Frank's treatment, a note explaining he was continuing therapy and had recorded another video if they ever wanted to watch. Susan showed the note to the girls. Lily folded it carefully. Not now, she decided. Olivia nodded in agreement. Someday, Olivia wrote. We might want to see it, but not yet. Susan respected their decision. It was a process, and they had the right to choose how and when to confront the man who had caused so much pain. They placed the note and video in a small wooden box labeled "For the Future," alongside Frank's other recorded message and the letters he had written. Their past, acknowledged, but not forgotten. Instead, they focused on the present. Lily's science project was selected for a city competition. Sophia landed a solo in the school choir. Susan started working part-time at a local clinic. Ethan closed a major merger that solidified Hayes Tech's global position. Life was full of everyday ups and downs, but also full of promise. The big shadows that once loomed large had receded, replaced by the ordinary challenges of a family forging its own path. In a quiet moment, Susan found Ethan in the garden, gazing at the flowers the girls had planted long ago. Some were thriving, others needed replanting, but overall, the garden was lush, vibrant. Just like us, he said, sensing her presence. Some of us took longer to heal, needed different care. But look at how we've grown. Susan slipped her hand into his. We did it together. He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting contentment. Together, he repeated softly. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow over them, a reminder that storms pass, that darkness doesn't last forever. Lily's laughter rang out from inside, followed by Sophia's responding giggle. Susan and Ethan shared a smile, knowing those sounds had once been stifled by terror and silence. Now they were free. As the years passed, the memories of their ordeal became chapters in a story of survival, resilience, and love, a story they sometimes shared cautiously to help others, to prove that escape and healing were possible. Susan occasionally volunteered at shelters for abused women and children, offering both a listening ear and a living example of hope. Lily and Sophia, on their own initiative, collected donations and wrote letters to kids in foster care, remembering what it felt like to be unseen. Ethan quietly funded programs that supported victims of domestic violence, ensuring that the resources he had once used for corporate battles now also served a more personal cause. None of them pretended trauma vanished overnight. Flashbacks still happened, triggers still lurked, but the difference was that now they faced them openly, armed with trust and professional help, never alone. You don't have to be fearless, Dr. Ramirez often reminded them. Courage is moving forward, even when you're afraid. And they did move forward, each at their own pace, supporting one another with patience and unconditional love. When Lily turned 18, they threw a surprise party. She laughed, cried, and hugged everyone, marveling that once she had believed she wouldn't even live to see her teens. Sophia's 18th birthday followed a year later, celebrated with an art exhibition featuring her paintings. One painting showed two small figures huddled together under a single umbrella in a storm, a rainbow just breaking through the clouds. Susan recognized it immediately, the twins in the alley on that rainy Chicago night when Ethan saved them. Sophia's transformation of that dark moment into art was a testament to how far they had come. It's called Hope in the Rain, Sophia explained softly. Because that's what he gave us, hope, Ethan, tears in his eyes, could only nod. Sometimes words weren't enough. As the twins stepped into adulthood, Susan and Ethan realized their family was bound not by blood alone, but by choice, stronger than any abuse or trauma could break. Frank Davis was a distant memory, somewhere in a prison system receiving therapy, writing letters they might never read. He belonged to a past they had survived. Their future lay wide open, college or careers, travel, and endless possibilities. The nightmares of the past no longer defined them. We survivors, Lily would say proudly. And we're so much more than that now. We're free. Sophia sometimes wrote poems about freedom, about finding one's voice after years of silence. She performed one at a local art festival, earning a standing ovation. Susan, standing in the crowd, felt tears of pride. Ethan slipped an arm around her, equally moved. They had witnessed a miracle. Two broken souls, mended through love, strength, and perseverance. That night they gathered around the kitchen table, reminiscing, laughing, dreaming. The shadows that once haunted them had no power in the warm glow of their shared life. "Remember," Ethan said, raising an imaginary toast with his glass of sparkling cider. "We faced worse storms and survived whatever comes next. We'll handle it." Lily clinked her glass against his. "To us, to family, to hope," Olivia added, her voice clear and confident. Zara closed her eyes briefly, capturing that moment forever in her heart. They had made it through every threat, every bruise, every nightmare, and now they were writing a different story. A story of second chances, of love chosen again and again, of a home where fear had no place. Over time, the house filled with photo frames, pictures of graduations, holidays, silly moments, proud achievements. Each snapshot a silent testimony to the life they'd built from the ashes of terror. None of them forgot the old scars, but those scars had new meaning now. They were proof of resilience, of how far they'd come, and how strong love could be in the face of cruelty. Emily often repeated Dr. Santos's words. "The trauma we survive doesn't defy us, but it can guide us to be kinder, braver people." And so they lived, day after day, forging a future that once seemed impossible, a future where rain no longer meant fear, but the promise of new beginnings. Because in the end, this was their story, a story of rescue that became redemption, of broken trust rebuilt, of a billionaire who found meaning in protecting two twin sisters who deserved a life free of nightmares. And most of all, it was a story about family, a family that rose from shattered pieces to stand strong and united, a testament to the unstoppable power of hope and love. They had ended the cycle of violence and in its place planted seeds of compassion, empathy, and courage. Those seeds took root, blooming into a future brighter than any of them had dared to imagine. And so, with the echoes of the past no longer controlling them, Lily and Sophia embraced the life they had fought so hard for, together with Susan, together with Ethan, knowing that the true measure of victory wasn't just surviving the darkness, but learning to dance in the light.